Barney's podium. I got up to speak last Wednesday night, and they leave me a little clicker for the thing, and the little clicker fell down on the floor. And so I'm on the stage going, okay, I got a little bit of a low cut glass, and I don't want to turn my, so I was like, how, and I'm in heels, how am I going to pick this thing up? And so I finally just went, okay, get it, What's that?
No, actually you go, hello, stage manager, would you come get this for me, please? Yeah, come get my clicker. This is not going to work. I think just leave it there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody ready?
Thank you very much. No. Good morning. My name is Jill Clements, and my topic today, my talk title is Pink Eye and the Looking Glass. And I have a story for you. Many of you know, I don't know if you know, but I did go to Disney World for the conference in Orlando and had a wonderful time. It was very well organized and a lot of great speakers and a lot of great information. And my sister came down and stayed for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and got home Sunday night, and on Monday morning I got up with this brilliant crimson, bright red, inflamed left eye. I thought, what's that about? And as I got ready to put my makeup on that morning, I thought, well, just in case it's something more than a little allergic reaction to something, I want to make sure I don't cross-contaminate in case it's that pink eye stuff, right? So as I sat down in front of my illuminated, magnifying mirror to put my makeup on, I set my intention, oh yeah, I need to go right to left because I don't want to cross-contaminate. So as I picked up the first brush to apply my makeup, what did my hand do? Automatically towards my left eye. And I'm watching this in the magnified, illuminated mirror going, oh, wow, that's interesting. So I consciously and mindfully moved my process to the right eye, then to the left. I picked up the next brush. Left eye. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. Being reflected back to me in the magnifying, illuminated looking glass. So as I finished the process, I was struck by the metaphor, of course, of the mirror reflecting back to me my behavior physically versus my intention mentally. And I thought, wow, where else in my life am I setting an intention in mind, and yet it's not matching with my physical beingness, my physical showing up on planet Earth? So I went, of course, to the science of mind. And what can I find in the science of mind? Well, in the chapter on the law of correspondence, Dr. Holmes has this little section called the law of correspondence. Have you heard of the law of correspondence? It's basically the law of reflection. And with the mirror example, I thought, okay, I'm dealing with the law of reflection here. And I'm going to read just a little bit of this, and we're going to talk about it and break it down into some detail. He tells us that the limit of our ability to demonstrate depends upon our ability to provide a mental equivalent of our desires, for the law of correspondence works from belief to thing. So breaking that down, the first thing he says is the limit of our ability. Well, what I'm hearing is the opposite. I am unlimited in my ability to demonstrate, except for the limits that I put on myself. He also talks about demonstrate, which we know is simply the outpicturing or from thought to form, going from possibility to demonstration in form in front of us. He then says that that limit is based on our ability to provide a mental equivalent. Well, I don't know about you, but I have thrown out that mental equivalent language at a cocktail party and people go, is that a new dance? What is that? What is that? So the way that I have begun to explain mental equivalent is an equal in mind. An equal in mind. And if we're going from thought to form, we have to have the thought in mind first, right? And then it comes forth in form for us. And a mental equivalent, if we talk about prosperity. So prosperity is an attitude. Would you agree? It's not those little green pieces of paper. Those are just the means of which we trade goods and services. It could be shells. But in our planet, in our country right now, it's those little green pieces of paper. And that prosperous attitude is how we look at life, how we visualize our life from that prosperous place. Am I giving of myself? Do I give a smile? Do I give appreciation? Do I give gratitude? Do I give of my time? Do I give of my talents? Do I give of my financial good? So that prosperous attitude is that place that we come from that becomes our mental equivalent so that life can then reflect back to us that prosperity that we already own in our minds. The next part of this paragraph goes on to say, but it is within our power to provide a greater mental equivalent through the unfolding of consciousness, and this growth from within will finally lead to freedom. How many have ever taught a foundation class? And when you are witnessing the students wrestling with these science of mind concepts and they're not quite getting it, they're just not quite getting it, and then one day you almost literally see that animated light bulb go off over their heads and they go, oh, I get it. And it's like the curtain pulls back and they finally, it all clicks into place. It's a transformative moment. And I would be willing to bet that your aha moments that you have had in your life, I know for me they have been, very transformative because something shifts in our perspective. Something shifts in the way that we look at life. I am reminded of an example from my own life. When I first got into management many years ago, I was in my 20s, and I was given the responsibility to approve some invoices for staff and subordinates billing time to a client. And I knew I was the manager, and I was billing at a higher hourly rate. But these invoices kept coming through for this subordinate of mine who was billing more dollars every month. And every month I'd look at that invoice and I'd get this gut punch. I'm more valuable than they are. I'm the manager here. How come they're getting more dollars than I'm getting? This is not right. And I went through this mental gyration, which was truly a reflection of my own self-worth at that time because I hadn't stepped into my big girl boots of being a real manager. After about 3 months of this, I finally had my own aha moment in that, which was, oh, wait a minute. I work on 10 projects, and I bill out a little bit of my time to each one. If I put a calculator on this and look at the dollars per hour, mine are higher, as they would be in that scenario. But I was allowing that to be reflected back to me in my own negative self-worth in that time, that I wasn't good enough to be that manager. And until I stepped into that and had that transformation where I actually could then embody, oh yeah, this is what's true here. There's always more to that story. So that was a very big aha moment for me when I first started out in business and management. And there is that feeling nature around those aha moments. There is that feeling that goes through our body when we have those moments of transformation. And the next part of this is, do you remember when you started Science of Mind? We learn to manifest, right? We learn that word demonstration. We learn how to change things in our life. Well, as I was learning this and began to see things happen in my life, I then went into fear. Oh my gosh. I just had a negative thought. Oh my gosh, it's going to happen. Oh my gosh, I just said that. Cancel, 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 cancel. Bring those words back in. Eat those words. Anybody else have that when you first started in this teaching? Sure. Well, one day I had an aha moment in that also. When I said, wait a minute. I am doing my prayers. I am doing my affirmations. I am thinking the positive thoughts about this good, and it's not instantly manifesting. It's an evolutionary process. Why do I think one renegade word out of my mouth is going to appear right here in front of me? So I had my own transformation, and Dr. Holmes tells us in this passage, he says, what we demonstrate today, tomorrow, and the next day is not as important as the tendency which our thought is taking, the dominant attitude of our mind. I love this. If every day things are a little better, a little happier, a little more harmonious, and a little more health-giving, a little more joyous. If each day we are expressing more life, we're going in the right direction. We're going in the right direction. And what that is saying is that life is a journey. It's not just a race to this one spot. It is a journey. And every day is just that tendency of our thinking to think more positive, to think more affirmatively, and to stay that path and to allow it to unfold. And is today better than yesterday? Is today better than yesterday? And we just continue our evolutionary process and continue to up-level the tendency of our thinking. Are you a worrier? I would hazard a guess not in this room, but are you a worrier, or do you know people who are worriers and the tendency of their thought is always to go to that dark side? Or are you a positive person who thinks optimistically? The glass is always half full. There's always a way. And those are the tendency of your thinking. Look at those. And I am reminded of a story from Disney. Disney is just a wonderland of sermon fodder. I highly recommend trips to Disney World for sermon fodder. As I mentioned, my sister came down and stayed the last 4 days. And on the Saturday night of after the conference, the hotel could not accommodate us where we had the conference, so we had to move to a different resort. And we went in for dinner. And the way it was set up was almost like a food court at a shopping mall where you had all the various places, but then the checkout was like a cafeteria style where you took your tray up to the various cashier lines. And it was a little bit busy, and then we're standing in line, and there's a lady in front of us, and all of a sudden she steps out of line and she walks beside us and she says, "You ladies go ahead, I want to be with him," and points to a gentleman standing behind us. And we said, "Oh, just bring him up and you guys go ahead of us." And she said, "No, you go first. I want to be with him. We have more things than you do." Okay, thank you. So we continued to chat. And I noticed that there were a couple of people in front of us still waiting for the checkout. And all of a sudden I hear a voice behind me. And it's a gentleman that walked up and he says, "Excuse me, ma'am," to the lady behind us. He said, "I'm opening a new register. Would you like to go first?" And she and her husband walked up and went and got first in the next line. And I said, instant karma. But I bet not, as I've considered that situation. I think she was making a declaration. I choose him. I put him first in my life. I put this relationship first. And being with him was much more important than being in the front of the line. So that was her first declaration. Her second was, "You go first," to my sister and I. So she's then declaring, "You go first. You go ahead of me." And then what did the universe say? "You be first." And she ended up being first in front of my sister and I because she got to the other line that had just opened up. So I would bet that was the tendency of her thinking, was to always put others first in her life. And then we got to see that demonstrated there. I also saw this demonstrated. How many know Steve Rambo? Reverend Steve, yes. He came over and spoke at New Vision Center back in January. And Janice came up from Tucson. And afterwards, we went to lunch. And it was a very busy parking lot restaurant for lunch. And we had circled a couple times, and as we circled once, I went, okay, guys, manifest as a parking spot. We came around the corner, and not one, but 2 parking spots opened. So we all had a nice, big, jolly laugh, right? But I would suggest that that was the tendency of their thinking. As a minister, and 2 ministers, we'll call them right now, in the car, they both just knew that our parking spot was going to open for us. And they did. They were expectant in their demand and their tendency of thinking. And they were receptive to what showed up. And we got to choose which one that we wanted. So it is that tendency of our thinking that we need to watch that does absolutely outpicture and create our life. The mental equivalent. Let's back up and just kind of summarize what we've been talking about here this morning. And Dr. Holmes tells us about our mental equivalent, that that's the first place that we start in this process for the law of correspondence. That our life is a reflection of what we consistently think. Would you agree? Yeah. And we see it reflected back at us. And I don't know about you, but when I see it reflected back at me, I have a tendency to blame it. That's wrong. Not recognizing that it's being reflected back. Now, I didn't do that with the magnifying illuminated mirror that I was looking into on Monday morning. I didn't blame the mirror for the reflection that was coming back at me. I simply stopped and said, whoops, it's me. It's this physical response that is not in alignment with my thinking. And I had the power to bring it into alignment, but I didn't blame it. I didn't throw the mirror out the window because it was reflecting the wrong thing. Oh, my goodness. But I think we have a tendency to do that in our life. When someone sees that big red button in the middle of our forehead and pushes it for us. And it's our belief that's being reflected right back to us. We also, there's a positive side of this too, though. It's not all negative. There is a positive side. When I see beauty, when I see joy, when I see prosperity, and I notice it and I say, yes, where am I that? Where am I that? Where am I that? And why is that showing up in my life? And we can anchor in and claim those positive qualities. Just like we can look at the maybe not so positive qualities and say, where is that me? How am I behaving that way? And our personal relationships are the best ground to see that reflected back to us. Would you agree? Yeah, and we have a tendency to blame our partners rather than going, where am I being that way? Where are they simply reflecting back to me who and what I am and how I've behaved and been that way? They may put a different jacket on it or paint it with a different color, but underline, it's my belief that is being reflected back to me in that moment. So again, our mental equivalent, get one. Get one. Figure out what it is you want to manifest and get yourself a mental equivalent, get an equal in mind, and know that's what you want to create. The tendency of your thinking, watch it. Keep an eye on this. Recognize when those emotional charges come back to you, be they joy and wonder, or be they, ouch, that's not right, I'm blaming, they're wrong. Look at those emotional charges. Use those as the meter of your life to determine where you are in the tendency of your thinking, where you are in your beliefs. And then look for the reflections and bless them. Bless those reflections because they're simply reflecting back who and what you are. So our invitation this week is to do that, is to look in the reflection of your life. Look around and pay attention. Pay attention to the beauty and pay attention to the things that challenge us. And in closing, I would like to share with you a poem. And I love Google. I love the internet. There's a line in The Science of Mind that, you know how Dr. Holmes sometimes would put quotations around things but not tell us what it's from? It was one of those. And I thought, okay, I'm going to just Google this and see what it is. And up pops this poem. It is a line from a poem from Madeline Bridges, and she was on the planet between 1844 and 1920. So she would be popular probably during Dr. Holmes' time. So the title is Life's Mirror. There are loyal hearts. There are spirits brave. There are souls that are pure and true. Then give to the world the best that you have, and the best will come back to you. Give love, and love to your life will flow, a strength in your utmost need. Have faith, and a score of hearts will show their faith in your work and deed. Give truth, and your gift will be paid in kind, and honor will honor meet. And the smile which is sweet will surely find a smile that is just as sweet. Give sorrow and pity to those who mourn. You will gather flowers again, the scattered seeds from your thought outborn, though the sowing seemed in vain. For life is the mirror of king and slave. 'Tis just what we are and do. Then give to the world the best that you have, and the best will come back to you. And so it is. I was more prepared for this message than I have been for many, and I really liked what Glenn said when his talk that Dr. Holmes was saying about being prepared in consciousness. And I feel like I was, but in the middle, I lost a few things that I had in alignment and so forth, and I found myself trying to get back to it and fill some time. So that was my self-analysis of it. But otherwise, it felt pretty good. It felt I loved not being too tied to my notes for the first time.